Here with me to talk about the Cardinals and their season and their chances for the postseason is Cardinals fan Willie Marx. How you doing, Willie?
I'm great, Earl. Thanks for having me on. This is a real treat for me. I kind of like this aspect of you bringing fans into the mix. This is fun. Glad you and I were able to introduce a little bit so I can talk Cardinals baseball all day long. So looking forward to seeing what you have in store for me.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I always tell people that the questions are pretty simple and nothing that would be akin to torture or anything like that. Pretty easy, especially as diehard fans go.
Awesome. Yeah, let's go. Let's get right into it. What do you say?
Let's start about it. Willie, now, how did you become a Cardinals fan?
Well, as most people in St. Louis will probably say, we're born into it. So I have been a St. Louis Cardinal fan since probably the days that I could walk and probably before then. I have a picture out there of me as like a 2-year-old decked out in Cardinal gear that I like to show people from time to time. But when you're born and raised in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, in the greater St. Louis area, you're pretty much a Cardinal fan from the day you start breathing oxygen. So that's just kind of how we are. We love St. Louis baseball, more than anything else. And I think a lot of that is attributed to, back in the day in the 40s and 50s that KMOX, which is still a flagship radio station in St. Louis, was broadcasted basically from Minnesota down to Texas. And so from that, that was one of the easiest ways for people to listen and get involved and get interested in St. Louis Cardinals baseball. So I think that legacy of the radio station when they had, millions of users listening to games night in and night out has really sort of, created a lasting legacy throughout the Midwest region. So, Cardinals Nation, we're expansive. There's tons of us. We travel well. It's just in the water supply throughout St. Louis and Missouri and the Midwest. So it's pretty easy for me just being born in St. Louis. You're just automatically a fan pretty much.
I always hear that Cardinals fans are the most friendliest fans in baseball unless you're a Cubs fan or someone else in the division. But other than that, like an outsider like me, if I'm coming, I'm an Orioles fan. So if I'm coming to St. Louis, I'm probably expecting especially friendliness, especially from basically sibling, a long-lost St. Louis sibling in that case with the Orioles.
Yeah, and that mantra of us being, the best fans in baseball and all that drown out stuff that you probably read all over Twitter and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's probably a little corny, a little cliche, and we probably deserve some of the backlash that comes from it. But it really is. You got people that are invested all game long. They will cheer opposing players. I'm sure you saw when Pujols came back into town, he got a standing ovation for hitting a home run, which was, really cool for all of us. Obviously, we love Pujols, and he will have a special place in all of our hearts forever. So, maybe it is drawn out. Maybe it is a little bit corny and blah, 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 blah. But it comes with the territory. We consider ourselves the kings of the NL. So it's lonely at the top sometimes, and we like to let people know about it. But it hasn't been the case for the past, about half decade, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. So we're trying to get back to the mountain, but we'll always be interested no matter what.
What is your most memorable Cardinals moment? I know there's so many to choose from. Is it the recent run with LaRusso? Did it go back to the Whitey Herzog days? Where do they stand?
So I was born in 1991. So Whitey Herzog probably, predates me. But, like you said, there are tons of things to choose from. Obviously 2011, it will never get any better than that. What a run that was. What a roller coaster that whole season was. But for me personally, there's one easy answer, and that would happen to be September 8th, 1998. Big Mac hit 62. He breaks the home run record. It happened to be on my 9th birthday. I was in attendance like 30 feet above where that ball went over the fence. So to me, it's an easy answer. It's Big Mac. Those are some of my greatest childhood memories is going to games that summer. And yeah, the steroids and Bonds and McGuire and Palmeiro and all those guys, maybe some of that legacy has been tainted for obvious reasons, but you can't take that away from us. It still happened. We still there. We still, felt the emotion and the joy. So to me, it's a pretty easy answer. Being there, being on my birthday with my friends and family, that's something I will take with me for as long as I live. And I doubt it'll be eclipsed, but hopefully it does.
Expectations coming into the season. What were you thinking for the Cardinals? I know that a very competitive division, not counting Pittsburgh in that case, but everybody else was very, very excited. Everybody had a lot of optimism. What do you think was in store for the Cardinals?
Obviously, expectations were high. They just got Nolan Arenado. There had been rumors, for about 2 seasons that the Cardinals were interested in Arenado, and negotiations and talks got pretty close for a while, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. So when we started hearing rumors that Arenado was back in the mix for the Cardinals, I kind of just shrugged my shoulders, say, been here, done that. I wasn't really expecting much. They didn't make any major changes other than that. Once Arenado, the deal went through, obviously, we were super excited. We're getting some of the pitching healthy. Jack Flaherty's in a contract year, so you knew that he was going to try to put his best foot forward. We had Yachty back for a year. Adam Wainwright's been fantastic. I mean, he is actually probably as a legitimate case as far as getting Cy Young votes go. So with all those things in place, we were really excited. In April, we had a good April. We were in first in the Central. We knew the Brewers would be tough. We knew the Reds would be tough. We didn't really know what the Cubs were going to do at the time to start the season. But obviously, we've seen what they've done, and they've sort of taken themselves out of the mix. But they were really high for a while. And then I would say as the season progressed, I had buddies that were basically betting the Cardinals every single day because we were so confident in the Cardinals. And that probably lasted about, probably 4 weeks until we saw what the team makeup really was. But, when we got into the later stages, Aaron Hicks gets hurt, which is a tough blow. Flaherty obviously going down for an extended period of time was tough. Not having Michaelis, not having Dakota Hudson, who were, sort of pillars in the rotation for the last 2 years, that was a tough road for them to overcome. I would say the most polarizing Cardinal in current day is Matt Carpenter. And, it's no secret Carpenter has struggled. He's been a Cardinal legend. He was, he had a season where he had 55 doubles in 2012. He's been a great player on and off the field for the Cardinals. But, you start to hear rumblings. People are getting upset. He's hitting under 200, has been for a long time. The rotation was kind of lackluster, and the team just didn't really have a whole lot of spunk. I mean, if you would have told me the season that Tyler O'Neill would be having the season that he's having, if Waino was pitching this well, I thought we would have run away with the Central, but that just hasn't been the case. The pitching hasn't been good. We've been walking way too many people. I think we're going to set a National League record for most walks with the bases loaded in Major League history. I mean, since they've been keeping the statistics since like the 20s. So expectations were high, but they kind of quickly dissipated, sadly.
Was there a point you felt like they weren't going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, recently I think it was 2 weeks ago, they gave up a walk-off 2-run home run to some guy I'd never heard of from the Pirates in PNC Park. He hit the thing like into the middle of the river. So that was a tough blow in a game they were leading outright. They lost another couple games to the Cubs earlier than a couple months ago when they had commanding leads into the 8th and 9th inning and throw those away. I mean, that's been really the biggest problem for the Cardinals is holding on to late inning leads. And most recently when Daniel Vogelbach hit one into the second deck for a walk-off grand slam, which is just a demoralizing game, early in September against a division rival and somebody you got to chase. So I think that's pretty much been the summary of the Cardinal season. And I don't know, I'm hopeful. I can't believe there's still only one game back. I really am shocked. I mean, it's kind of stunning, to be honest, that nobody seems to want to take this last wild card spot. So, I think 2006 and 2011 have kind of broken my brain as a Cardinal fan. 2006, they were the worst team statistically ever to get into the playoffs and wound up winning the World Series and winning in 5 games. And then obviously in 2011, when they were 11 and a half games out to start August, get in on game 162 and then do what they do in the playoffs against the Brewers and against the Tigers. I mean, it was just, you never know what's going to happen. And so I'm hopeful, but not as hopeful as other years. I think the Reds schedule is probably way too easy. I think our schedule is probably too hard. And the Padres have basically impossible final stretch. So we'll see what happens with them, but that's kind of where I am.
Was there the optimism for the playoffs at one point? I mean, there still is, and who knows what'll happen going down to 162.
Yeah, I mean, why not? We're one game out, right? So why not be optimistic? You never know what's going to happen. But again, I think that the Reds schedule is probably going to be the deciding factor. You look at it, they've got, I didn't have it pulled up, but I don't know if they play another winning team or a team with a winning record the rest of the way. And when we've got, a 4-game set with the Brewers and we got another 3-game set with the Padres, that I think that'll ultimately be the difference. But again, Cardinal Magic, the voodoo sauce, whatever it is that we have here could strike at any time. And maybe the Cardinals get hot and can pull it out down the stretch, but I'm keeping my guard up. I'm not anticipating much, but crazier things have happened.
If the Cardinals make the playoffs, who do you feel like they match up the best with in the National League?
Good question. I would probably say the Padres just because they've been struggling so bad. I mean, Tatis is a monster, obviously. I just don't think their pitching's as good. So I think in a short series, you can maybe get the Padres. I know the Cardinals are overmatched against the Giants and the Dodgers. So hopefully we could avoid them, until a championship series. I'd love a crack at a division team, like the Brewers. I know their pitching is unbelievable, but in a short series, maybe they get an outstanding start out of Waino and Flaherty and see what happens from there. So, I know how good they are. I know Counsell's a great manager. They made some pretty awesome moves at the trade deadline, getting Willie Marx and some other aggressive moves that I think is, going to have them contend deep into the postseason. But I would say I'd be fine with a short series against the Padres and hopefully we can get the Brewers and then just see what happens from there.
Who's the team that you don't want to match up with in the playoffs that you don't want to see? I assume whoever comes out of the NL East hasn't been mentioned. I don't know if they're going to be scary either because they're pretty much battle tested. And I know whoever wins the West and the first wild card are going to be scary as well.
Yeah, the East is interesting. I don't think any of those teams are really any good. I mean, the Mets are their own worst enemy. The Phillies, they come and go. They get really hot. They get really cold. And the Braves, they'd be great, but with no Acuna, some of their pitching's been hurt recently. So, you'll take your chances with the East, and this is my Cardinal brain speaking, but we've bullied that division around for a long time. Beat the Phillies in the playoffs, beat the Braves 2019. They don't scare me. Maybe that'll come back to haunt me, which is fine. I'll take that. But yeah, definitely not as nervous against those teams as you are like the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers are so good. I can't believe the Giants have held them off for this long. You got Scherzer and Turner at the deadline. You got another Turner that's amazing. Cody Bellinger having a shocking year, obviously, but they have tons of firepower with Seager and their pitching. And I mean, they're ready to go. They've been through this before. They got over the hurdle. So, I think the sky's the limit for the Dodgers for sure.
I know a couple of questions. One regarding the Dodgers. I know when the talk of Pujols getting released by the Angels came up, did you think a possible reunion would have been in the cards? No pun intended there.
Oh God. I mean, if you go to my Twitter account, which basically all I do is vent about Cardinals baseball, I was like, I've listened to enough John Mozeliak quotes in my life, and I thought it was a sure thing. I thought no questions asked, they would go get him. They said right away, how couldn't they be interested? I was so excited. I was ready to go back to, as many games as I possibly could. And then I see if I could understand an AL team signing him, right? You can DH him all the time. You don't have to play him at first base all the time. But when he was signed by an NL team like the Dodgers, I'm like, how in the world did the Cardinals let this happen? I mean, ticket sales have been down this year. I'm sure they're down all across baseball with COVID and the Delta variant and everything else. But I couldn't believe it. When I saw reports afterwards, after Pujols had signed with the Dodgers, that the Cardinals never even called him. And so I was just dumbfounded. I was so excited that he was going to come back to St. Louis, ride the red carpet all the way to the Hall of Fame. And it was going to be, this great homecoming story. But again, stunned. Couldn't believe the Dodgers pulled the trigger and the Cardinals weren't even on the radar, apparently, from all the reports that I've read. So I was sad. I was shocked. But I'm holding out hope. Maybe he'll sign a one-year deal next year, but we'll see.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing. I always saw the Pujols signing sort of like that weird time that Jim Thome played for the Dodgers where he's just that power bat off the bench. And so far, Pujols has really, when he comes off the bench, he really has made an impact. Watching that Giants game a week or so ago, and it was just, he found the fountain of youth, especially when it comes to, especially playing sparingly, and he comes up in the clutch.
I know his health is one thing, but man, you put him in the batter's box with 2 feet on the ground, and he's healthy. He can still get you a big hit and a big home run at any time. And he basically raised me on big hits and big home runs. So, for those 10 years that he was in St. Louis, I think it's the greatest 10 years in the history of the game. But again, I'm biased. I get it. I'll take all the backlash you want. But yeah, it was a real letdown. I'm really sad he's not there, but it was cool. I got to go to a couple games when he wasn't back in St. Louis. So I hope it's not the last time he plays a game in Busch, but at least I can say that I was there and got to send off, my childhood hero.
One more question before we go into the predictions of the World Series. Looking at last year's playoffs, where the Cards were in the playoffs, and it looks like, with the exception of the Pirates again, I know that there's probably some Pirates fans out there that won't be happy, but I think they'll tell you the truth as well. That basically the playoff order, those teams, it seems like it's been in reverse, where it was Chicago, St. Louis, Cincinnati, Milwaukee. Now it's Milwaukee, Cincinnati, St. Louis, Chicago. What do you think was different between this year and last year? Was it just the lack of another 102 games to let everything filter out, or what would you say?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I need some more time to think about it. But I think, I have my own personal thoughts about this Cardinal team. And I think they lack, and I don't want to name names, but I think like this old guard. And again, I love Adam Wainwright. I love Matt Carpenter. But, you see like how Tatis plays the game, right? With just this unadulterated joy and this passion he brings to the sport. And I think that the Cardinals, and I don't know if it's intentional. I don't know if it's, accidental. I would think it's more intentional that this quote unquote Cardinal way sort of seeps in the locker room where, you don't see as much joy out of these players as you see from a Tatis or a Machado or, I would say the Cubs back when they were in 2016, 2017, they kind of had that swag and that freedom and that kind of thing. I think there's still this sort of old guard malaise that still sort of plagues that, you've seen Major League Baseball embrace, like let the kids play and all that kind of stuff. And I think there's this Cardinal way. Mike Shilt's been in the organization for, 15 years, and you got Wainwright that's been there forever and Carpenter. And it's like, have fun, but don't have too much fun. And I think that, pops its head into the field a little bit. I think it carries over, onto the diamond. So I don't know, maybe a new regime change is needed. I don't know what the solution is there, but I think that like these other teams sort of look like they're just having more fun on the baseball field. So maybe I'm out of left field. Maybe that's totally out of place, but that's what it feels like to me. When you go to the stadium, there's less buzz. When you look at Chicago or you look at San Francisco or you look at San Diego, it's just not the atmosphere and the spunk that it used to have.
I was going to say if it was a regional thing, but you just mentioned Chicago. So, I mean, maybe I was going to say maybe it's sort of a West Coast versus Midwest thing. But I mean, but then again, we also have the Yankees that, that Yankees mantra has been the same as well for a very long time with the, business as usual and, not too much. I don't know if the Yankees were more, not too much emotion, but, the clean cut pinstripes and everything like that.
I don't think I'm talking about. Like, let's have fun. Put your hair down. Like, you just go out there and have fun and let the balls and strikes be the deciding factor. I don't like this, buttoned up approach of, we got to do it the Cardinal way. I think it's kind of old and drawn out and probably need a reset button on it.
Now, Willie, we go to the predictions for the World Series. Who do you have coming out of the American League? Who do you have coming out of the National League? Who wins the World Series and how many games?
So I'll start in the National League again. I'll be biased. I'm not going to say the Cardinals, but in my heart, I'm going to say the Cardinals. But I think it's clear. I think the Dodgers are the best team. I think they're the premium talent. They have all the pitching in the world. Walker Buehler, Scherzer. It's been amazing. They were able to get Scherzer and Trey Turner at the deadline. I mean, the rich get richer. I think they're clearly in a class of their own, even if they're not in first place in the West. I think once they get in, that they'll blow everybody out of the water. In the AL. Granted, I'll admit I don't follow as closely just because I follow the Cardinals in the Central, but I'm just going to say the White Sox just because La Russa, my boy Lance Lynn, love those two guys. Abreu, I think they got the pitching depth and I think they got the lineup to get it done. So, anybody but Yankees, Red Sox is good enough with me. I'll take the White Sox if they want to win it. I got Dodgers in 6 over the White Sox. I think that's what I'll go with. The Dodgers are just in town and they kind of took it to us. And I'm like, there's nobody beating these guys. I mean, they're so good defensively. They've got all the offensive power. You can ask for, and I just think they're too good to be taken down this year.
As we wrap this up, do you have any social media shout outs? Anything anybody you want to give shout outs to? Anything you want to promote? Ways people can reach out to you on social media to talk Cardinals baseball?
Yeah, sure. So my Twitter handle is at WMARX_STL. You can find me there. Again, my Twitter handle is pretty much just venting about Cardinals baseball. So if you're not into that thing, you probably don't want to follow me. And I guess, my second shout out is that I'm a co-founder of a startup fantasy sports social network called Encore Fantasy Games. You can find it at www.encorefan.com. We are a new startup. We went live in March. Sort of our quick elevator pitch is that, Earl, if I sent you a friend request on our platform and you accepted, I'd be able to go in and have transparency into your fantasy teams, your trades, your pools, going in and looking at it. And it's our new proprietary system that we're excited about. We're fundraising and we're launching and we're a fully fledged company. So if you want to check that out, it's really cool. We think it's a neat feature that hasn't existed in the fantasy space. So go check it out. Again, that's www.encorefan.com. We're live in the App Store and on desktop. So feel free to check it out. It's pretty cool.